We will call this meeting of the City of Beaumont Economic Development Committee to order promptly at 4:02 PM. At this time, I'll ask Ms. Wheelwright to call the roll, please.
Mayor White? Here. Councilmember Lara is absent. City Manager Gibbs?
Here.
ED Manager Warzinski?
Here.
Chair Lawson?
Present.
Vice Chair Rader? Here. Member Ahmed stated he would be absent this evening. Member Beneke? Member Brown? Member Copeland?
Present.
Member Moran?
Present.
Member Vince? And Member Glider.
Thank you, Ms.
do have a
Wheelwright.
quorum.
You've already given us a report on the action of request for excuse absences. Therefore, I am going to ask if Your Honor would grace us and lead us in the pledges. You're going to be leading it Friday. We'll give you some practice, sir. All righty.
Ready, begin.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, sir. Yeah. Ms. Wheelwright, are there any adjustments to our agenda?
I have none.
Hearing none, we'll move on. Are there any conflicts of interest that should be disclosed? Hearing none at this time, we will move on to public comments. Do we have any public comments that are not listed on our agenda?
I have no written comments. Heather, do we have anyone on the line?
No callers.
Thank you. We
Oh,
do.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Chair
For this
recognizes
portion?
the gentleman in the front row. If you would step up, sir, and please identify yourself. And welcome this evening to our Economic Development Committee meeting.
Thank you. And I really like it when people ask me to identify myself because they don't know who I am. And I appreciate that.
Okay. My name is David Castaldo, and I represent myself. I was present at your presentation of the downtown plan. Was that September 15th? Was that the date? Okay. And our mayor, Mayor White, suggested something that the downtown Beaumont business owners should unite and act as a consortium, as a group. I took your suggestion. So I am here representing some of those people tonight. I don't want to appear confrontational. I don't want to be antagonistic. However, I do want to mention one thing that several of the members would like me to address and present. Your committee goals, the first one is fine. The second one and the third one, recruit new businesses while retaining and expanding local business that promote growth of primary jobs and/or sales tax revenue. And the third one of create a quality of place that establishes Beaumont as a community to establish or grow a business. Some of our members really question those goals and don't feel that this committee or the city is actually meeting those goals. And at some point in time, we would like to meet with some city staff members, and particularly the mayor and the city manager, and discuss some of those things in private that maybe can be corrected. And I kind of believe that staff doesn't even know what is going on, and I would like to present that to them. Again, I don't want to be confrontational nor antagonistic. We would like Beaumont to be a very business-friendly community that promotes growth of businesses and the consumers alike. Thank you.
And let me say, sir, if I could.
Sure.
First and foremost, you are not being in any way confrontational or antagonistic. Anyone is welcome here to have input. That's first and foremost. And that's a great thing I love about this nation. We have the ability to share our thoughts and ideas, and we welcome that, and we are glad that you came, and we hope that you'll come back more often. Now, I cannot speak on behalf of our city manager, nor can I speak on behalf of Mr. Warsinski and his team, nor can I speak on behalf of our distinguished mayor here. But I'm certain if you will contact their respective offices and ask for an audience, I'm sure that they'd be able to carve out some time to listen to your thoughts and ideas. And if you are representing the businesses as a consortium, certainly we would welcome more ideas, and especially in writing, so that we would have something to look at, because Mr. Warsinski is always driving us to bring agenda items that are important to the community. And it's important that the community speaks to us so that we can begin to identify those things that are most important to you.
I still have 45 seconds, may I?
Oh, yes,
comment
I'm
that?
so sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you. Take all of your time, sir.
No, sir, okay. I have never had the pleasure of meeting you personally.
Yeah.
I have known Mr. White for about 10 to 12 years now, maybe a little longer. Kyle, I knew since he was in high school, at least I thought he was in high school. And our new city manager I've known quite some time. I have complete confidence that we can work something out, and once they understand some of the problems and issues that business owners have, that we can create a better business climate for many of the members. I have no doubt on that, and I appreciate the invite. Thank you.
Yes, sir, absolutely. And I apologize that I hadn't had a chance to meet you. I'm Vaughn, and I'm relatively new to Beaumont since 2014, but I'm from a totally different planet. I'm an alien. I'm Oklahoma boy, born and bred, so forgive me for that one.
I personally grew up in Chicago.
All right, all right.
Thank you.
Chairman, can I just announce something?
Yes, ma'am,
that
please.
Mr. Castaldo might be interested in?
Yes, ma'am.
We are having a downtown business meeting on October 20th here at City Hall in the evening across the hall. And we have invited all of the downtown businesses, and that topic will be specifically on homeless and safety, which was set at their request. The police department will be here as well to address those. And so, Mr. Castaldo, if you were not aware of that meeting, we would welcome you to come to that.
I greatly appreciate the invite. Thank you.
Fantastic, thank you. Are there any other questions for Mr. Castaldo or any other comments, please? Questions or comments?
Actually, I have one.
Yes, sir.
As far as the local businesses that are involved, or that you are representing some of them, my firm is also a local business. We recently purchased the building next door to the post office in Beaumont Avenue.
Yes.
I'm sorry,
Am
I
I'm
didn't
not-
quite hear
am I
that.
not- I'm not, now I'm on, sorry. In reference to the businesses that you're representing, we'd like to join forces with you. My firm recently purchased a building next door to the Beaumont Main Post Office.
Okay.
So it's Berkshire Hathaway.
The one that everybody
Real
uses your private property as a parking lot?
That's it?
Yeah.
That's it.
It works great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
But we want to be very much involved. And so after the meeting, I can give you contact information.
That'd be great. I look forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. If there are no other questions or comments at this time, are there any additional public comments that have come before this group?
I have no others.
All right, hearing none, we'll move on to our action items and public hearings and requests. At this time, we will entertain a motion for approval of our minutes. If you've had an opportunity to review them, if not, we'll give you a moment. We'll open the floor for a motion.
So moved.
It's been moved and properly second that we would approve the minutes as they are stand. At this time, Ms. Wheelwright, will you please call the roll?
Yes. Just for point of order, I show that Mr. Beneke is on the line on Zoom as of 4:09.
Thank you.
And I'll do roll call. Mayor White?
Here. Yeah, I'm sorry, yes.
Thank you. City Manager Gibbs?
Yes.
Manager Warzinski?
Yes.
Chair Lawson?
Yes.
Vice Chair Rader? Yes. Member Copeland?
I must abstain. I wasn't present for that meeting.
Member Moran?
Yes.
And Member Beneke?
He's on mute.
Member Beneke?
He-
Oh, you're muted, Mr.
You're muted, sir.
Beneke.
You're muted, sir. There you are.
I am mute, but I just unmuted myself.
All right.
Do I have?
Yes,
Thank you.
so much, sir. All right, then the minutes will stand approved. We will now move on to an update of projects from our city staff. We'll defer to Mr. Warsinski and his team, please.
Thank you, committee chair, members of the committee. Real short update for me tonight, and then I'll kick it over to Ms. Taylor to update you on a couple items. But I did want to introduce Daniel Diaz. He's the new management analyst that's joining the Economic Development and Community Development Department. So the council did allow for a new position to be created this fiscal year, and we're happy to have Daniel step into that position. So he will definitely be helping myself and Christina as we move forward. And then Christina, I'll kick it to you.
Welcome aboard, young man. Absolutely. And he actually spent this time with us on his birthday. That's dedication. I think he needs a raise. I don't know about the rest of you. Congratulations, young man, and welcome aboard. Hey.
Just briefly, I wanted to provide an update to the committee this evening on some items that had been previously discussed here. Part of this is relative to what Kyle is going to be presenting. We had discussed, it's been a couple months, about some zone changes or zoning code amendments that needed, not zone changes, zoning code amendments that needed to be taken care of in order to help facilitate some of the interest and whatnot of the business community. And so staff has been working on those. They will be at Planning Commission the end of this month, and they will be presented to council on November 1st. And Kyle is going to present this evening on some of the incentive packages, the other part of what will need to go to council for what we've been working on over the last few months. But as the zoning code amendments don't come back to this body, I just wanted to provide you an update and let you know if you're interested. They will be at Planning Commission and at council here in the next couple weeks.
Any questions or concerns regarding this report?
So with that, I'll jump into the staff report that we have for you tonight, and I'll also turn on the slideshow. So I think we're familiar with kind of the history on what's brought us here tonight for the business incentive program, but for members of the public that may not be aware, the city did but the city council adopted a budget for this fiscal year, and that budget contained $500,000 for downtown business incentives. And once that was done, the Economic Development Committee started talking about different ways to incentivize businesses to move into the area. It really stemmed from the two downtown business meetings that had been conducted, or the one that had been conducted, and they said, we have these barriers of entry. There's these things that we would like to see. So staff worked on some of that, presented much of the items that Christina detailed in terms of zoning and design standards and so forth, that at the last EDC meeting, we recommended move forward through the process. The business incentives that we discussed at the last meeting were then packaged as a draft concepts and presented to the downtown businesses on September the 14th. And we received feedback on those, some comments on those, and then the discussion went towards the direction that the city manager alluded to in terms of public safety and homelessness and so forth. But we got some feedback on those programs, and then additionally, people called into our office and provided comments on those programs that weren't done at that downtown business meeting. So with that, staff has put together a draft package of kind of what this program might look like. So the first component of the program that we're looking at, incentive, so downtown facade improvement program to improve the aesthetic appearance of a business's outside, the facades typically. We also contemplated whether this program could also be utilized for the interior of the building, and possibly the landscaping around the building or the property improvements related to parking or streetscape or so forth. So that's kind of what we're talking about with this one. The one thing I have come up with in the last 2 or 3 weeks or so, speaking with the city's attorney's office, is interior improvements could be problematic if they're not like permanent interior improvements. So a lot of this program would be using general fund money, and the city would be awarding that to the public for what we would consider a public benefit. And it's been proven that facade improvements are definitively a public good because they improve the aesthetics of the building. People and the general public can see those things. They can experience that when they drive by. It may work to improve land values within an area if a bunch of people team up and perform those improvements within a district. Interior would only be a benefit to the people that go into the building. So there is some level of concern there, as well as non-permanent interior improvements may depart when the business departs. So if you're talking about tables and chairs and things like that, a business may remove those as they vacate that space and possibly relocate to a different space outside of the downtown within the city, or possibly outside the city in general. So that's one thing that we're looking at. So with that, the program that we're thinking of is $200,000 in total, maximum application of up to $50,000 at a 50% match. So a $50,000 match would really necessitate the project total cost to be $100,000 or higher for what they're looking at applying for under this program. We wrestled with how to pay on something like this, and our preferred method would be paying through reimbursement. So they spend the entirety of the project costs, submit us receipts, invoided checks, and so forth, and that way we can actually look at what was done, compare that with what is in the field, and then pay them back. Or secondarily, because we do understand that some of these entrepreneurs or small businesses may not have that $100,000 or what their half would be in order to complete the project, is a possibility of doing a pay per invoice. So pay is almost like a business loan where you do some improvements, you submit those receipts, we go out, make sure that what you said you were going to do was done. It's inspected, it's up to code, it passes, and then the city would either pay the applicant or pay the actual contractor directly for that work performed. So in terms of design standards, we like to just reserve that until the revitalization plan is complete. But until then, each application would come under the review of the design review committee, which is comprised of the city's manager's office and all the other department heads and working managers through the city. So they would be who would review these applications and ultimately recommend approval of those applications to the city council. Does anyone have any questions on that one? Yes.
I have a question. On the review of the application, have you considered having a local business person be included on that committee to have the insight and firsthand knowledge of a business person to say, aesthetically, this is great, or it isn't, or perhaps, I think what I'm trying to get at is having a business person in the local business area participate on the committee gives you an extra set of eyes from someone who's directly involved in it. Sometimes the best, well, I'm repeating myself, so that's my suggestion.
Sure. Yeah, we had not considered that.
Okay.
I have a comment on that comment. Although I think it'd be okay to have a business person on there, these kinds of decisions are very subjective, you know, in terms of what looks nice. To you, what looks nice may not look nice to me. So I could understand that whoever's on that committee may look at things a little bit differently. I think you need to be more objective in terms of you need an overall plan, an overall concept that then people can identify with and then change their facade to fit that pattern or design or motif or whatever we come up with. And I think we're kind of got the cart before the horse. If we try to go out and spend a lot of this money, we may have kind of a mishmash of people doing facade stuff that in the long run will not meet our objective of bringing continuity and symmetry to the downtown area. And you're talking about $200,000, $50,000, you're talking about 4 projects. I don't know how many businesses we have downtown, but we probably have well over 50, 60, 70, 80, maybe 100, I don't know. Not that they'll all want to change their facade, but if it catches on, and I know this can be refunded year to year, but I think 200,000 is very minimal, and I think we ought to leave the approval to the Development Review Committee in the interim and try to fast track the completion of the revitalization plan, so we do have some kind of standardization for these applications and for something to review and some way to make our downtown look consistent with continuity.
Chairman Lawson, I can speak to some of that if you don't mind.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so as far as the design guidelines or standards, what we have right now is a baseline design concept in the general plan update, the downtown area plan that was adopted. So we have some conceptual ideas of where we would want to go with the look of downtown. As we move through the process of the downtown revitalization, one of the things that we've requested as a supplemental or an option to that process is downtown-specific design standards. So those would build upon what foundation has already been laid in the general plan update in the downtown area plan. So we wouldn't be starting from scratch, and we do have a conceptual idea that the Development Review Committee would work with to ensure some consistency on projects that we might see applications for over the next year. Another possibility that would come out of this is if we do comprehensive citywide design guidelines, then instead of being part of the downtown specific process, there may be some, larger sweeping guidelines that would apply citywide to commercial, industrial, residential specifically, and then we would work with those. So we have a couple of things in the works depending on what direction is given and what direction we end up going. But there will be some method or some format for consistency to make sure that we don't have a bunch of hodgepodge looking buildings in the downtown. And then as far as the number of, was on Zoom, as far as the number of projects that we may take, this is a recommendation. Council may choose to tell us to allocate more funding to that, or we may have to come back if it's been very successful. If we get 4 applications right away and each of them hit that 50,000 threshold, we may have to pull from another category that Kyle will speak to here shortly, or council may give direction to let those funds be fluid within a certain amount. So maybe it's not just 200,000, maybe it's 300,000 or 400,000 or up to a certain amount, but not to deplete, the categories and all the others. So we do have some options on that. This is a pilot. It's the first time for us. So we hope that we can spend all the money and that people take advantage of, or businesses take advantage of it. But we also want to make sure we're, kind of putting all of the options out there and then seeing which ones are better received or more utilized than others.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. We'll defer back to Mr. Warsinski.
Thank you. So I will kick the next one off, which is the, oops, did I click it twice? Let me go back.
Do you want questions as we move through these or at the end?
I think as we move through them is fine.
So I have a couple of questions on item number one. 50% maximum match. Are we saying that there would be, we're matching 50 cents on every dollar?
Is your mic on?
I do now, thank you.
Sorry, sir.
Okay, I thought I was the only muted one.
No. So on the 50% maximum match, that is saying 50 cents on the dollar or dollar for dollar up to 50% of a maximum? What do you mean by 50% maximum?
It was the 50 cents of a dollar. So if the total project cost is 100,000, we would match 50,000 of our money with 50,000 of their money.
So that's a one-to-one match.
1-to-1 at half the project cost.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so it's a dollar for dollar match up to our share would be 50,000.
50% of their total cost up to 50,000. Yes, you're right. I was wrong.
Okay. And then just for more information, can you describe what the Development Review Committee is and what they do now?
Sure. So the Development Review Committee is comprised of staff from the city manager's office and each of the departments in the city. So community development, planning, code enforcement, building and safety, fire safety inspection, public works, community services, the police department. So any application, any formal application that's received by staff typically comes in through the planning department for a new development or a new business to occupy, whether it's to construct a new structure and occupy or whether it's to occupy an existing structure. Those applications come into the Development Review Committee. At that time, staff looks at the existing conditions and the business operations that would take place there and provides what we call conditions of approval on the project. Typically an existing building, say it's a building downtown that's gonna have, it's a retail space now and it's gonna have a retail, business in there. Typically we have standard conditions that apply, which include like, making sure you fire extinguishers and exiting and, things like that. And planning conditions, meeting your zoning requirements, your landscaping and so on. When it's a new construction building, then of course it's a much more detailed approach with a lot more conditions. Typically, those items are also presented at Planning Commission and sometimes then at City Council for final approval if it's a new construction project. But essentially, anything that's going to be constructed or operate within the city first goes through these departments to make sure that they're meeting the requirements for the respective departments and that they'll be safe and, functional in all the proper aspects.
And this is not a public committee?
No, so typically it is just staff. If there is a request from an applicant to meet with a specific department or the whole Development Review Committee team, after they've received their initial conditions of approval, then staff schedules a time for them to come in and meet with the Development Review Committee or with the specific department to talk about the conditions or any concerns they might have.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
That's all I have.
Thank you.
Okay, so the second one is a business incentive attraction program. So what it would really do is provide financial assistance to support economic development, business attraction, really to create a positive place for quality businesses, and hopefully expansion of businesses within the area. On this one, because the city is technically a lender, the way we're proposing it, we're looking at a little bit differently than a financial institution would in terms of rate of return or things of that sort, which is really a bank's primary motive of lending money is can they get repaid and how much do they make when they get repaid. Ours is different because as the city, we're looking at increased investment in the business community, adding additional jobs, increasing business activity within an area, and primarily that's the downtown, is how to create what I would consider catalyst projects to kickstart the development of the downtown. No one wants to go to a downtown that has nothing. But once it has 5 or 6 things or 10 things, it creates synergy amongst itself. And then possibly we don't need a program like this any longer, because then the market drives itself and everyone wants to be there, and we've succeeded in essentially kickstarting a process that the free market would have taken 5 or 10 years for. And obviously to increase tax revenue and quality of life of our residents. So this one, the proposed allotment would be $200,000. I do appreciate the comments on the last item of that's only 4 businesses. I would be ecstatic if we got 4 businesses under the facade program. The reason I came up with the $200,000 for this is because it looked good. So in order to get people to utilize this program, we're gonna need to market it. And 200,000 seemed like a decent amount of money to throw out there in marketing material, as the city council has approved $200,000 for new businesses in these categories. It seemed a little bit better than 100. So that's kind of where I came up with the 200 amount on this one. We're thinking that to create these catalyst projects or places within the downtown which create synergy, it would be one of these 5 categories. And we obviously can discuss this and add or subtract. But for a loan for a business incentive program, we're thinking of a premium casual restaurant, which is upscale, fast casual dining, high quality food with an elevated atmosphere, but more casual than fine dining. Seating area indoors or outdoors, both obviously would be better. Sit down fine dining, upscale high quality food, beer and wine list, elevated atmosphere, sizable seating area indoors, and bonus for outdoor. Bars and cocktail lounges, upscale and elevated atmosphere, premium offerings and activities and events, breweries, distilleries, and small scale alcohol production. So manufacturing of craft beer, spirits, wine, products sold on site and for off site consumption, retail component with elevated atmosphere. And lastly, I tried my best to shoehorn entertainment uses in a simple sentence, but things that have live entertainment, a music store, a bookstore, art housing, art showcasing, technology focused, high-tech video games, virtual reality, other things that we've discussed in terms of possible maker spaces with one of these other components combined. I think I told you I found a location in an urban area that had a bar and a maker space combined into one operation. Fairly progressive, nifty idea. So something like that might be considered an entertainment use under this one. So maximum of $50,000 for fine dining, and then $25,000 for each other category. This one we've contemplated is not a grant, but a forgivable loan, in which if it was the fine dining establishment at the 50,000 mark, their loan would be forgiven at 5 years of operation. And then for the other categories at the 25,000, it would be forgivable at 2 years of operation. If the business ceased operation or moved out prior to that, then the repayment amount would be prorated to what was remaining, much like your car's battery if you've ever needed to claim on something like that. Available for both new and existing businesses. The existing businesses, in order to qualify, would need to be an existing sales tax generating business that has a current business license and is seeking to expand their gross floor area or their square footage by more than 50%.
Is there an age on the existing businesses? They have to be less than 5 years old, or they could be 45 years old?
I did not put an age because I think what's the most important is, in order for us to consider it an expansion, you growing your business, it would be more than that 50% of their floor area or more, regardless of if they've been here for 2 years or if they've been here for 50 years.
So we've seen it done different ways in different cities. A lot of cities target new businesses in certain sectors, so they're not necessarily focused on expanding, but because we've heard from the business community here, both existing and the desire for new, it's more equitable to do it, I think, this way, to give existing businesses that have been partners in the community, existing in the community, operating and serving our residents, the opportunity to grow and expand if that's what they would want to do.
What's the definition of new?
A new business would be
Not
a
operating
business
here.
that is not here.
Hypothetically, someone buys a business and right now, today, they're doing work on their tenant improvement work on their space. When this program goes into effect, would they be classified as an existing but they're not open yet?
If they're doing their tenant improvements, they've not received a business license yet. So I think we could still technically consider them a new business.
All right, thank you.
Any other?
Questions?
Yeah, whoops,
Yes, sir, go ahead. You just muted yourself. Still muted. There you go.
okay. We need to meet more often. I don't, I have difficulty pressing these little buttons. Let's see. Yeah, I'm not real sure I understand the concept here. Business attraction incentive program. There's money available. Let's have I'm an existing business. Let's say I'm one of the art framer people downtown here. I sell frames, I sell artwork, whatever. Give me an example of why I would want to maybe make an application or put an application in for some funding.
Of course. So the concept is that if you want to use your example, an art frame store might not be considered an art house or an art showcase. What we're looking for is like a formal art venue that you would see in other downtowns, or if you've been to El Paseo, they have many of them. An area that creates synergy with the restaurants around them, because while you're waiting for your table, you might go look at some fine artwork and so forth. Or maybe your destination is to look at the artwork and you end up going to the restaurant because you get hungry, things like that. So say it's one of those and it's existing here and it may not be in the downtown, it might be in the downtown, but you want to expand and you want to grow and your building's stuck, so you need to move to another location. We don't want you to move out of the city and have your business that is successful relocate to another city. So in order to help you expand, you could apply. It's not guaranteed. It's not first come, first serve automatic application. You get council approval for the money. You have to apply and show us those criteria that I had alluded to, how you're going to meet the increased investment in the business community, provide additional jobs, increase business activity, increased sales tax revenue and quality of life. You make a compelling argument in your application on those, and then the city may offer you up to $25,000 for that type of thing. That if you stay at that new location that's 50% or greater larger than your existing, then council may end up funding that one. Primarily, I think it would likely be used more for restaurants under the premium casual or fine dining or bars, cocktails, lounges, or the breweries, distilleries. Staff envisions a marketing campaign working with my team, Christina's team, and our consultant team that's going to go out and find businesses that may be in other neighboring downtowns or that need to expand or are possibly being priced out if their lease is coming up soon and the landlord's doubling their rent, or looking at successful businesses that we've always wanted here and say, look, you want to put in your fine dining establishment in downtown Beaumont. We know it's going to cost you a lot of money to retrofit the building. It's a risk because the downtown is not vibrant at this point in time, but we're willing to help you out and to throw some money there. If you're willing to take a risk, we're willing to help you with that investment.
So basically, it's a pot of money that you have at your disposal when someone comes into town looking to do business in this town, and it's a business that we want in our downtown, and we're able to offer them some assistance in getting up and running. Is that basically that in a nutshell?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now I understand it. Thank you very much.
Kyle,
Good idea.
a question. Use an example, the Craft Beer Lounge, okay? They're doing really good in their business. They want to enhance their patio. Instead of having, tents and awnings, whatever, they want to enhance it and make it a formal patio. That would be something that would be eligible for consideration.
That might be, I think Christina's right. It might be more facade. Now, if the patio was 50% more of their floor area, then possibly it would fall under this category. But if it's on the sidewalk, I don't know if it could hit that. But that's what we're thinking of. That's a good example of if they were able to present something like that, we would be able to consider it.
Well, yeah, I mean, when I think of the patio, I'm thinking this isn't like the outdoor area for them. It enhances the number of patrons they can take care of. I think of, you mentioned 50% or increasing the floor area. There was a now closed restaurant in town where they created what they labeled as a patio, really wasn't. I would think, but it had the same function. It increased their ability to serve more customers. So the same thing would apply then, right?
Yeah.
They would fall into the qualification of doing something that's permanent, that increases their ability to serve their customers, therefore, they want to do it in a professional, nice way instead of, haphazard.
Right. So I think the question there would then be, as we further refine this before we take it to council, does the 50% or more increase in floor area mean in a new space or adding on to additional building? Or if that space that we know Craft Lounge is already using outside, just as an example, would we then consider that a facade enhancement or something that enhance their existing space that's already being used? So you bring up a valid question that is somewhat of a gray area now talking through this that we need to clarify more. How are we going to classify that 50% increase? Is it going to be to improve additional outdoor space that already belongs there, or to actually increase capacity by 50% or more?
And then to add to that, you also have physical constraints. They don't have the ability to add 50%. They only have the physical ability to add 30%. And if it's 50's the threshold, too bad, they're out. And in that sense, I think that it shouldn't be absolute. There should be room for, in the procedure, to allow for the committee to deviate with recommendations, of course, because if you have a physical constraint, the tenant or the owner of the building, whatever, physically can't go out anymore, because then they go into the common area, the public area, they can't do it. So I'm just suggesting that be taken into consideration.
It's valid, and I think it's something we can include in our presentation to council as comments from this committee.
Sort of to come back to why we, as a council, wanted to do this and what we're looking at. And I think we've talked about this in the Economic Development Committee before, which is basically we want to attract, we want to retain, and we want to enhance the current businesses in a direction that fits with our goal of in our 10 or 15-year timeline for a goal of what kind of downtown we want. And so I think this is a really a good guideline, a good starting point, but I think we have a lot to sort of iron out. But I think my concern, the reason I raised this on council was that we hear from business owners, Anthony is one of them, who wants to grow his business, and he's getting offers from other cities as to why you should not grow in Beaumont, you need to grow somewhere else. And so we wanted to find a way to retain those businesses as well as do a little bit of the active poaching ourselves and try to go to another city and say, look, you've got a great business here. Beaumont needs that business. Here's how we can help you. We can provide you some assistance. We can't give them like our neighbor can. We can't say, well, we'll give you a discount on your electricity for 2 years or whatever. So we're trying to find ways to be able to grow and move the downtown in a way that's more aggressive and proactive than just waiting for it to happen. But I think it's a really good start. I think we do have, after our initial conversation here tonight, we definitely have at least one more Economic Development Committee discussion regarding this so that we can go home and think about what we've talked about and get input from other business owners. That's all I have.
Any additional questions or comments?
I'll give a comment if it's okay. I'm not sure about it.
Come and join us.
Tell us.
I've never been on this side. Good afternoon. My name's Anthony. I'm owner of Cornerstone Barbecue. Been operating in this city for 4 years, had the storefront for 3 years. We've increased revenue 50% every year. And this year, the goal was to hit another 50%, but I'm looking at to be exactly the same as I was last year. I think being that I've outgrown my space. I'm working at a 700 square feet, and that's kitchen, counter space, everything included, and that's like nothing, that's like a shoebox. So we added additional outsourced seating that I'm renting out from the next door parcel. So we added seating just because we needed more space for people to congregate. My building doesn't allow me to grow anymore. I'm at where it's at. So if I were to go to another building, I mean, you're looking at 150 to 200 grand that I got to put into it. And as a small business, it's not possible for me. Unless I take out a loan or, I get investors and that gets iffy because now you're already starting in the negative, and then I'm doing, we're profitable. So I don't want to change or move anywhere else because I know that I'm already profitable here, but it's not sustainable for not only my staff because we're only, I need to add more hours to them, but I can't add more hours or give them raises if I don't make any more money. So I'm like stuck at a catch-22 where I'm like, I want to promote and I want to give raises, but I can't, the business doesn't allow it right now. So the only way, so we currently added Wednesday, so today we're operational. Typically we're only open, well, at the start we were only open Friday through Sunday. We added Thursday, now we added Wednesday, and then we added a breakfast as well. We're looking to add an evening menu as well because downtown should be thriving in the night, it should be lively, but I'm not sure if you guys drive through 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock, it dies over there by where I'm at. So we need to bring more stuff, not only to the businesses, but to the actual facade of the whole street, as far as things like artwork on the sidewalks, benches, lighting, music, trash cans so people don't litter, and things to that just to make it more walkable. And we started, we put tables out in the front. We clean it up. I power wash it at least once a month and try to make my area look good. Even across the street, I took it upon myself to go cut some bushes down, clean up, throw away mattresses and garbage that was down there, because I believe in my downtown city, and I want it to look presentable. I want it to be thriving. So I would like for the funds to be utilized for existing businesses that are down there, or even if they're in the city and vicinity where, hey, they want to relocate it, they want to be in part of the downtown. I don't see it being too beneficial, at least for me. I'm like, it kind of stings where we're going to go grab a Texas Roadhouse from, somewhere else, or we're going to go get a Cracker Barrel. Like, there's a lot of good businesses that are here that have been here. And I want them to have the opportunity before any outside investor or any outside big business comes in and takes over. Because there's a lot of money out there that could come and redo it in 1-2 years. But that's just investors coming in, doing their thing. And I feel like there's no love or soul in that. It's just, if we want to be different, if we want to have people feel the vibe down there, we need to put our hands down to the plow and really be like, okay, this is our baby. We care about the downtown in Beaumont, and we're going to do it. But that's what, I don't know if you guys have any questions for me or anything.
Any questions or comments?
I have
Yes,
two
ma'am.
questions. So even with expanding your hours, you're still not making any more money than you made last year?
So today was the first day of being open on Wednesday.
Okay.
So today we broke even, which is all right. My team gets hours, which is good. But again, anytime that we've opened, like when we opened Thursday, it has to, naturally grow. It just doesn't happen overnight. So a lot of people probably didn't even know we were open Wednesdays. But as the word gets out, as we continue to do more marketing ourselves, then the goal is to be open Monday through Sunday. But me being the only business restaurant down there, I can't do it. Like if I was next to In-N-Out, yeah, that'd be a no-brainer because there's so much foot traffic that I'd be getting it every day. Like sun up to sundown, we'd be there selling barbecue. But over there, like it's like nobody's there, so it's very hard. But again, we've been growing by 50% yearly, and I think this is the only year that it's starting to slow down, and we're looking to see what we could do. So we added another day, we added breakfast, so we could we got to figure out how do we create more revenue, what do we do, how do we reinvent ourselves, who do we talk to so we could get more exposure just to continue to grow. Because ideally it would be nice to grow 50% every year, but even 25% growth is still growth.
And you said you were able to expand to the space next door. Is there ability for you to expand at your current location?
Yes and no. So like there's a residential unit behind me. So ideally, if I were to knock that thing down and create a really nice space, that would be awesome. But nobody's in them. Personally, I don't know who's going to knock down a whole building that's created revenue to the landlord and be like, okay, we're going to rent it out to you so you can knock it down and rebuild it. And then again, all that takes time, money, and it's a little hard for us we don't have that type of capital accessible.
I'm trying to visualize what's next door to you.
We got a tattoo studio, and then we got a phone repair, and then we got an office, we got an antique, and then we got the EMTs. And then next to us is Dick's Automotives.
The ideal thing is to take out the neighbors.
They're really nice. I wouldn't do that. No, they bring people in,
Yeah.
so we need them. But
Okay.
The space you expanded into, is that for seating?
yes, for seating. So behind the two studio, I put some shade sails. We added like some tables and things. Try to make it look a little more presentable for people, but it's kind of hard because we're like over here, and then you gotta like walk way over there to figure out. And then most people don't know, they can't see it. So it's still underutilized because again the way that it's laid out. But we had to do it just so some people could at least sit down and enjoy the meal.
So Anthony, what are your breakfast hours?
Breakfast hours right now are 7 a.m. to 10:30. We do breakfast burritos, breakfast sandwiches, and the goal first when we first started breakfast was to sell 20 burritos. Now we're hitting about like 40 to 50.
And which days of the week?
Thursday through, well, now it's Wednesday through Sunday.
Okay.
Wednesday through Sunday, and we got people just from Yucaipa to come get a breakfast burrito, which is kind of crazy. But
I'll be there Friday.
Well, I think Anthony makes a very good point that we need to focus and maybe build some ratios in here that we should offer this to existing businesses within Beaumont, not necessarily only within the downtown, but within Beaumont, primarily. Because you're right, if we have it here and we can enhance what we're trying to do downtown by moving them from somewhere else because we can help them. But I have a question for you. If the city were to come to you and say, we hear you tonight, we understand where you're trying to go, how can we help? In other words, if we asked you, what would your plans be if you were able to take advantage of one or two of these programs? Get some feedback from you before we go to council and start setting this up. Would you be able to sit down and go, okay, here's my plan, here's how I could improve my business? And the facade may not help, the expansion is a good idea. Would you be able to provide us something like that? And my next question would be, could we reach out to the rest of the downtown businesses or businesses Beaumont-wide and ask the same? So we have a better idea of how we tailor this to help existing businesses.
So I think there's it's a little tough, right? When you talk about business and how to expand, not a lot of people sit to think about, okay, what's my next move? What are we doing? Like some of us business owners are very busy doing our day-to-day things that we're just consumed by daily tasks that we were just trying to get by, closing, opening, and it's kind of tough. So not a lot of people, they know that they need help, but they don't know exactly where they need the help at. And again, when we talk about building something out or facades or things of that nature, not a lot of people have gone through the process about, pulling permits, speaking to contractors and all the amount of money that's like, it's expensive to do anything nowadays. Everything gets so expensive. So, people have offered like 20 grand, but I'm like, to me, that's like permits. That's nothing. That's just getting plans and engineering, and that's basically all there. So, to put a kitchen into a building that, any building that we take right now is possibly from on the very low level, you're talking about like 75 grand. If you want it done really nice, and where you're talking about like 200, 250. And I was going to go talk to another owner because I know he's building one from the ground up. So I don't even know if that's a better shot of doing something from the ground up rather than rehabbing a whole brand new structure. For me, all I know that it's like I just need a kitchen space. That's all I would need personally, because everything else, everything that I've done at the shop, I've done it myself. I'm really good at fixing things. So that's what I do. I fix everything myself. And again, I've networked a lot, so I know a lot of people that would draw plans pretty on a very inexpensive thing. But I think that would be an ideal thing to have somebody that we had maybe contracted out or something that we could help as a city to draw up plans, draw up engineering. Okay, maybe give people an idea of A, B, and C. Like this is minimal. This is middle, or this is if you got a lot of money, you got a lot of capital, you should go this route. I think a lot of things that we need to look at is we don't want to help what business, the way that I see it, if you're not really exceeding your capacity now, why would I give you another 50% space just to get a larger overhead, and it's going to be just detrimental to your business rather than, so I know that everybody wants to grow, but sometimes it's not the right time for everybody to grow. I think we need to start looking in, because again, if I would have started with a 3,000, 4,000 square foot building, I probably wouldn't have made it, in hindsight, which I think I could have probably made it, but I don't know. I was like, I think it's good to start small and to, increase in every step that we take. But there's not a lot of people that could be that critical on themselves and be like, you know what, it's not my time to grow right now. You know, because I've been trying to grow since like 2 years ago, and it still hasn't happened. So I'm pretty sure there's a reason for it. And again, we've had offers. We had people come up to us, tell us a lot of good things. You know, I think like 2 weeks ago, the city of Banning reached out to me again to try to look down there, which is awesome to see that people see my business as a valuable asset, you know, to their town. And I think that's where we need to start focusing on is like, which are stars here, and how do we create the ones that are not doing so well? How can we help them maybe not get a bigger space, but maybe there could be more utilized with facade or, you know, some type of marketing strategy that we could help them with or things of that nature. You know, not everybody needs a bigger building, but there could be utilized funds just to continue to have their building that's already there, thrive a little bit better, and, you know, really, you know, push so that in the second year, you know, we're doing this. These people already got their funds. Now we got more available funds. Now you're ready. We got a business plan for you. We got a structure. We already got your plan set up. Now it's your turn to go. You know, it's not for just one person, but it's for everybody to grow. But I believe that there's time for everybody.
So I've noticed in another downtown area that they have, the city, I believe it was, purchased and developed a building to incubate 3 businesses and said, we'll set this up for you. We'll provide you with a lease that is reasonable, that you can grow. And if you can prove to us in a year, 2 years, 3 years, that you are a solid business, we'll help you move to another location within the downtown and then bring in another business to it. When you first came to Beaumont with your idea, would you have taken advantage of something like that if it worked for you?
Definitely. You know, and then there's a lot of different people in town that have come from different areas that have great ideas, that want to start a business. Again, they just don't know where. So that, I mean, they come and talk to me, and I try to give them as much information that I can. But that would be an awesome place where, like, you know what, this is a program. And I mean, we could even, again, at that, you could possibly even set goals for them, you know, because again, as business owners, sometimes we don't do these things, but you need to be looking forward towards a goal or somewhere where this is where I'm gonna reach this year, second year, third year, and then fourth year, I should be wanting to expand and grow. I think that would be an awesome idea too.
Well, I know in previous years, Kyle, you've put together a number of business, what would you call them, events where you bring in businesses and help them learn.
Yes.
And I think helping them going through some of the stuff you talked about as far as, you know, getting a contractor in here, getting the planning commission together and start talking about what permits cost and how do you find someone to do the architect work to develop, you know, your building. And as you said, I think the buildings have to prove, or the businesses have to prove that this will improve their business or improve and enhance the downtown business area in a way that we want to go. But you're right, it doesn't do a whole lot of good to make all these offers to a business that is not proven that they can survive. And so I appreciate you coming in here. You gave us some great ideas. I've said this before, I'd love to hear more business people come in. One of the problems we had, I think, in our second business meeting was we came there wanting to get ideas. And I think you explained why some businesses aren't able to provide us with the ideas is because they're so focused on just making a living.
Yeah.
But we really need input from people who have started a business and successfully gotten to the point where you are, and now you're running up against limits based on your physical location. And so those are things that we really need to bring in more people, and more than, you know, Mr. Castaldo, you know, is now, I guess, representing a number of businesses. I'd love to have all those businesses come in and talk to us, because this is where we're trying to start this. Right. And, you know, he'd mentioned earlier doing something in private. I don't think we do anything in private. I think if we have businesses who want to come in and are concerned about the direction this committee is going, that maybe our goals are not their goals, we need to air that out in public, and we need to get more and more businesses to come in and speak to us. And I appreciate every time you do come in here. So, thank you.
No problem.
I need to talk to you afterwards,
Okay.
if you're around.
Yeah.
Please.
Thank you, guys.
Additional questions or comments?
Mr. Chairman, can I make
Yes, sir.
some chairs?
I'm really hoping that a lot of people forgot about this, but I didn't. I actually started a restaurant in Beaumont. The location is Tacos and Beer right now. That used to be a lock shop. And I got the experience and the understanding of what it takes to rehab a building into a restaurant. I will never do that ever again in my entire life. And I really appreciate anybody that wants to have a restaurant. It was not for me. However, when we did have the restaurant, I was restricted on the little 3 feet of property line that was in front that we could put a couple tables. We weren't able to expand out into the sidewalk area. We didn't get a whole lot of people coming by walking on the sidewalk, but I couldn't utilize that area. Being a former restaurant owner and understanding the health permits, the necessities of going through the health, my wife and I drive up and down this town and in the neighboring town and wonder, how the heck do these people that are selling tacos or burritos or anything under an easy up out of a cooler, and how are they able to exist? And I'm sorry, I look at a business owner like this gentleman that has to pay for rent, has overhead, has to pay for insurance. I know the health department comes by at least once a year and wants their share of the money. That's not creating a good business atmosphere for the people that are here. And I understand, Anthony, you don't want to move into a 3,000 square foot building, pay $2 a square foot on your first day, and that's $6,000 a nut to crack when maybe his rent is now $1,200. I don't know, I'm not going to surmise. But every small business starts small. They do good, they outgrow themselves, but the problem is now they can't get to a bigger place. And that's something that we, as a city and a business climate, are going to have to overcome. I am with Anthony. I would not want to see $20,000, $50,000 going to Texas Roadhouse to move to Beaumont. We don't need big corporate America here. We need to help the small guy. And I just want to offer a little suggestion. There is a big empty lot, I believe, at the corner of 8th Street and Beaumont Avenue. What happens if that was built into, the city would buy that, make it into a park, put a band show there for local bands on a Friday and Saturday night, and now you have plenty of lighting, you have kids come by, you can have Anthony with the food cart, you could have Chris with the food cart, you could have the guy with that owns the beer lounge come by and have it. He was great over at our State of the City. Now we have something where people come together, and the city has created an atmosphere. That's my suggestion. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'll tell you, Texas Roadhouse is all right, but Cornerstone is incredible. And I'm buying new belts every time I go in there. So please don't leave. Where you go, I will follow.
I agree on the non-corporate. I don't necessarily envision the corporate entities to be interested in the downtown area. You typically find them within new retail centers and so forth. Once in a while you find like a Starbucks that embeds themselves into a downtown, but for the most part you get the mom and pops. And then the other screening for that is, like I said, just because someone applies for it doesn't mean they're getting it. So there is going to be a review process if Marie Callender's decides to, they even have those anymore?
Yes, they do.
If they decide to come into the downtown, then that may be looked at different than someone that's just applying for their own diner, right? So I think we take care of that through the application process, but I really appreciate the other concerns and the comments that have been brought up on this one.
Can I add one thing just to what Anthony spoke about earlier? So I think we can reach out to the County of Riverside Economic Development team for some business 101 type classes. So it sounds like there might be a need to offer an opportunity for people who are wanting to start a business or currently running a small business to maybe get some assistance in future planning or how to manage certain things, how to look at different, aspects of improving marketing or other things. So I think.
Yeah, we've done that in the past. Rob, are you still there? I can't see you if you are.
Oh, is he on? Okay.
But we had a slew, and the mayor alluded to kind of our program that we had done in prior years. And since COVID hit, we weren't able to utilize our partners to hold those events anymore. But I'm hoping that all of them would be willing to partner with us again, now that hopefully we're beyond this, at least to the point where people feel comfortable coming back in person and attending meetings. And our last meetings have somewhat been evidence of that. So we could definitely reach out to them. We have a slew of different programs that we could run, how to start one, how to fund one, how to grow one, so forth. So we'll definitely look into that.
Hey, Kyle, this is Rob Moran with the county's Office of Economic Development. Good afternoon, evening. Thank you for mentioning that. And in fact, the programs that are available through the county and our partners have advanced and are much more specific than they have been in years past. And there are the, the general programs on, how to start a business and finance and so forth. But there's also some very specific ones about the restaurant industry and retail and e-commerce and all sorts of different more tailored programs. And there's a lot more funding available for them. In fact, we just allocated $1.2 million through our rescue plan funding to provide these services countywide. So absolutely would be more than happy and willing to partner with the city. And I think the other part of this component too is some of these gentlemen mentioned that it can be quite expensive to upgrade their facilities, and they're absolutely correct. And some of them may want to consider, not everyone, but some may want to consider sort of those wraparound services, to borrow a term sort of from the social service side. And that is that maybe there's some assistance they can receive in terms of the grants or the city components. And then there might be other loans or other programs if they kind of want to go all in. So I think there's some, more than just maybe the city programs, there's some other things that can be kind of paired and married up with what the city's doing as well.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rob.
Additional questions or comments?
No, I just know that Kyle mentioned something about applications. Maybe we could move to the pre-application fee waiver.
Thank you for the tee up. So these ones are going to be pretty simple. The city has a current pre-application process in which businesses can apply before they actually apply, if that actually makes sense. The pre-application gets you good, what do I always tell them on the phone? We give you the best comments based on the best information you can provide us. So if you napkin sketch it, we'll review it, but it won't be as substantive of comments if you have a full drawn plan. That pre-application costs $907.92 based on the fee study. It's been something that is heavily used throughout the city, but primarily for larger types of projects. If someone calls me and asks if we can look at something in the downtown area, it's typically a smaller scale project. I tell them, yes, it's this process, and it's $907, and I won't go into what they say after that. Because to me, it's cheap, but to a small business owner, to throw around an idea, it is not. So the concept on this one is to simply waive that fee for businesses that are proposing something within the downtown area. And we're going to refine the downtown area really on a lot of these programs to the core downtown mixed use and the Beaumont mixed-use zones, so not the further extension of the downtown area plan that extends all the way down Sixth Street to Highland Springs. This is really gonna focus on the downtown core area of Beaumont Avenue and Sixth Street to, I think, around Palm or Penn. And that's really what the revitalization plan is gonna focus on as well. It will not extend all the way down to Highland Springs. So this one, the program allotment, instead of giving out money, we're simply waiving those fees. So this would just be asking city council to approve the implied reduction in revenues that people would typically pay for that application. And the review process would be done through DRC, as Christina did describe. That's who reviews the pre-apps anyway, so this would not change. It would just be the fee waiver would go through them before they got the application to then review. So does anyone have any questions on that one, or should I go to the next one, which is also a fee waiver?
I'm just curious on the number of applications you get on a yearly basis. This is obviously not a great revenue generator for the city, is it?
You mean the fee or the program I'm presenting?
No, the fee. If we waive this fee, this is not gonna really hurt the general fund in any way, is it? I don't see this.
No, I don't think so as well. And we do receive a good amount of them, but as I alluded to, they're really for the larger projects. I can't remember off the top of my head how many of these I've seen for businesses within the downtown area. I can tell you I've seen many pre-apps this year for other projects outside of the downtown.
Yeah, and
I think in the downtown area, your idea is good. I mean, let's listen to people. We don't need to charge them to listen to them. And boy, if we can get them going on the right track, we'll get a lot more than $907.92 if they get a good business going in our downtown area.
Yeah, and where this may be even more beneficial, since typically the structures in downtown or the businesses are going to occupy existing structures where, as Kyle referenced, we typically see a pre-app for someone who wants to come in and build something entirely new, and they want a thorough review of what they're proposing on a site. This may be better fine-tuned in the pre-application waiver sense, to maybe roll it into more of a building inspection or a pre-inspection type of program where, like, I remember when Anthony came in and we were like, are you sure you want to take on this building, right? Like, because there's a lot of stuff that needs to be done, and it can be overwhelming for a new business or a small business to come in and not fully understand the extent of what's wrong with their building. And when I say what's wrong, I mean in the sense of like building codes or electrical systems that need to be upgraded or kitchen equipment that doesn't meet current fire building standards and things like that. And so this program, although it's a pre-application fee waiver, may be better suited to be rolled into something like a pre-inspection type program, equivalent dollar amount to this, where we can send our fire safety specialist and our building official or one of the inspectors out to sort of walk the property with a business owner and give them an idea of what would need to be done or the things from the city standpoint or from the code standpoint that might be deficient.
It's a perfect segue into my next slide, which is talking about the pre-inspection fee waiver. So what's it called now? It's called a building investigation fee in our code and under the fee schedule. So this is $216.91 to do exactly what Christina was alluding to, which is to walk a building with the building inspector, the building official, to identify deficiencies within that building. There is a disclaimer that when we do this, we're not guaranteeing that we can tell you everything about the building. It can just, we can't expose wiring and look at that, right? But we can tell you that this is an unreinforced masonry building that is visible from the outside. So we would do the best that we can. But it would help alleviate significant issues of a failing roof or unsafe foundation or something like that that our building official or building inspectors might be able to see or witness on a field inspection. So same concept as the other one, only for downtown businesses within those zones.
Yeah, and I just want to add, neither of these are required now, even as part of the development process. So this would be just if someone chose to take advantage of the offering, then they could do so. But you can submit an application for a business or for development without having gone through a pre-application or a building investigation.
Can you get the building investigation as a proposed owner of a building? Meaning, as everyone here probably knows, I'm a commercial broker. So I have a client who wants to buy a building and we've made an offer, but they haven't, whether it's been accepted or not, but they haven't closed escrow. They don't own it yet. Can that party come in and request this inspection?
That's a good question.
I would encourage it, but we cannot force that
Oh, no, no.
inspection to occur on someone else's building. So the building owner would need to sign off on that request.
Are you meaning as part of this free program, or are you meaning just in
The
general?
$215 fee to have a building inspector come over and say.
Yeah, you can,
Yeah.
you can go to City Hall and pay for that right now if your client wanted to. It's open to anybody in the city can request that.
But doesn't it require the building owner to approve it?
Typically on any application, yes, we require property owner authorization for,
So if we had hypothetically, because in my world it does exist, that my client wants to buy the building and the seller says, okay, we agree on terms, we open escrow, but now, is part of the due diligence on my part, I do the investigation, I go to the city and on behalf of my client, the purchaser, I want to have the city inspector come out, take a look at it. The answer is, if the seller doesn't say yes, can't do it.
right? And this is different than a typical property inspection for sale of a business. So this would be geared specifically towards a user. So Anthony wants to buy a building to put a restaurant in. He's not quite sure the extent of what's going on with the building. So we would, typically an inspection goes like this. You request it. We're gonna pull the information from the last permitted use or the last approved set of plans that we have on file. We're gonna look at those and we're gonna maybe take those out in the field, and the inspector is going to basically site check what's existing in the building versus the last approved set of plans. Then we look and see, oh, that was done without permits, or this was done under the old code, this would have to be updated, et cetera. So it goes like that. It's different than a typical investigation that you would have for the sale of, say, a home or a property for real estate purposes.
I understand exactly what you're saying, but I think you've answered the question that Anthony already owns the building, all right? But in my case, my client doesn't own it yet. They're about to, but they don't own it. So the city won't come out and say, by the way, we know this and this and this until my client buys it. And in my particular case, that's what happened. We closed escrow on the building and then had to wait, pull the permit. After we pulled the permit, city inspector comes out and says, here's your pre-construction meeting. By the way, everybody knows this is non-compliant, this is non-compliant, this is non-compliant. Had we known that in advance, we might not have purchased the building, is my client. So I'm saying, is there a mechanism that would allow the in escrow proposed buyer that benefit to simply say, this work was done without a permit?
May I ask a question of your expertise in your industry? Every time I've bought a house, both sides had to agree to a home inspection, or we wouldn't close the deal if we were buying the house.
Right.
So that's not done in a commercial environment?
As a rule, it is.
Okay.
But once in a while, you come across a seller who says, you're on your own. I'm not gonna agree to it. And if the buyer really wants it, they assume the risk.
Okay.
And so I'm just saying.
But you're right, if the owner doesn't agree to that, then there's nothing, even if we offered that as a service from the city, there's nothing that we could
Right,
force the
meaning
owner to do
The bottom
that.
line is, from a legality standpoint, you're saying the owner must agree.
So it's a matter of gaining access to private property, right? The city can't just go on any private property that we
Right.
want and inspect. So if we have the ability to gain access, both parties agree, or the owner or real estate agent representing that person allows for an inspection to take place, then that essentially, if there's an agent acting on behalf, then yes, the city could conduct the investigation. The city also will provide responses to permit requests. So if anybody wants to know what's been permitted at a building, then they can submit a request. Usually it comes through the permits email, and we will provide the information. So it's not necessarily owner authorization in the sense that the owner has to sign a form. It's, we have to be allowed to gain access
Right.
to a facility. And that's what I'm meaning by owner
I understand, and
approval.
we can talk about my specific thing later, but you did answer the question, and.
And my next
I accept
question,
it.
to
Yeah.
follow up to
I
that,
think
was
it's
going to
good.
be that to do a permit search, it's like a title search. Anyone can do a title search on anybody's property. And I would think anybody can do a permit search on anybody's property.
Yeah, we answer third-party permit and entitlement requests all the time. So they come in through the permit system or through the general email into City Hall. It gets routed to the appropriate department for whatever permits are requested, and typically.
So the
it's
buyer
something
could
we-
then say, I did a
Absolutely.
permit search, here's all the permits I've got on I don't see a permit for that, I don't see a
Correct.
permit for that, and
Right.
so you're gonna drop the price, or I'll buy something else, right?
Yes, sir.
And Chair, the situation Member Koblenz explaining, I've experienced multiple times in the past in which, I wish it was less, in which the seller is not willing to let the building official or a building inspector in that building. So then they ask, well, what do I do? And I said, well, proceed with extreme caution. So if that seller is not allowing a building inspector in that building, I would be asking myself why that is. And as Member Coblin said, if you really want it enough, understand you're assuming that risk and possibly ask for a reduced price. I mean, to me, a surety comes with benefit, risk comes with lower price. So, and that's the advice that I provide on those types of things. They don't have to listen to me, they can do whatever they want, but ultimately, that's been my experience. Sellers should not have an issue with showing the inside or the exterior of any building throughout the city, and if they don't, then.
And maybe this is a service that we can offer to prospective buyers. Say that here's some things that we can do. And, we can't do those other things, but I think that would be helpful.
A lot of times the buyer utilizes this program and the seller's perfectly fine with it. But there are situations which the seller decides, no,
Right.
we don't want them in there because they're scared about what they'll uncover. Or they already know what they'll uncover. 100%. So the next one, and we talked about this a little bit, and I think Anthony can attest to this one as well, is there's a barrier of entry within the downtown and other areas in which buildings would be redeveloped, and it relates to sewer capacity fees. It says sewer connection fee because that's really what, okay, I was wondering if we were all right in terms of the noise. But yeah, it's a capacity for sewer, really sizable contribution into the sewer enterprise fund for certain types of high impact uses. And I'm not suggesting that the fee is incorrect. It is appropriate and correct. It's just certain uses, primarily restaurants and breweries, have a high sewer use. They contribute high flows to the sewer treatment plant that also have high constituents, so things in the sewer flow, right? So in order to help offset some of the fees and the permits related to that, the idea would be to defer the payment of that sewer fee for 2 years maximum until they get up and running, they make some money, then they can pay us back for the deferral. On this situation, because it is a sewer enterprise fund, we would not be able to waive that fee. We would market it as a fee waiver, but realistically, what would occur is the general fund would backfill the dollar amount. So if Christina's business received a $10,000 deferral, that money would immediately be put from the general fund into the sewer fund, so the sewer fund wasn't being owed money day one and waiting for 2 years, and then that would be made whole. The deferral would come back and pay back the general fund when they pay it back. In the event they don't pay it back, we're looking at recourse to that as well. So we'll have that surety in place before the program goes live.
So
Go ahead.
So basically, the city is fronting the money, is what you're saying. The city is fronting the money to allow less financial impact to these people starting their small little business.
Yes.
And then once they get up and running, they pay back this fund. It's like will be like a revolving fund of some sort within the city for this purpose?
In essence, yes.
Okay.
So I was going to say, this is something that I think is really comes back to what Anthony brought up, is that we have a lot of existing businesses that are facing this right now. And this talks about within 24 months of occupancy. The problems that I've discussed with some business owners is that if they make the investment and then they end up losing their business or going to another location, they've made the investment for the property owner, not the business. And so I don't know how we really address that. But I think again, this one, we have a lot of businesses that we've heard from over the last year and a half, especially since we upgraded the sewer plant, that are being asked to make an investment that is required for us to meet our requirements as far as what goes into our sewer and what goes down the river.
Sure.
So I think this one is very important to the existing businesses who didn't know that they were going to have this cost before we upgraded the sewer plant.
So in that regard, I know we have that experience with businesses needing to put in grease interceptors or things like that. So is this something you might want to see expanded to include either a sewer fee deferral or assistance in complying with the regulations that we have in place?
I think so. I think the grease interceptors is the killer for a lot of businesses that have reached out to me over the last 2 years and said, hey, we just can't do this. And then they're going to look to move. They're going to say, well, my lease is up in 2 years. Why would I put in all this money for the property owner to benefit from it? But again, I don't know how we do that with separating the business owner from the property owner.
So I just off the cuff, and Kyle and I can vet this a little better. With the property owner would have to obviously be in agreement or be an applicant for that particular component. I think because it is an improvement that would stay with the building, it would continue to serve its purpose if one restaurant left and then it's set up for another restaurant to come in. So again, I think we could probably vet that a little more to make sure we're on the right path with how that works. But since it is a physical improvement that would continue to benefit both the city in operation and also, really the wastewater plant in the sense that it's going to help us make sure we maintain compliance, it's something that I think is worth looking at.
Yeah, definitely. And that the grease interceptor was one of the things I was contemplating under the facade improvement program, although it's not the facade, but I was discussing like a permanent improvement to the structure. And that's what I was thinking would be good for the grease interceptor. Obviously, it wouldn't work for the marketing, right? We would market a facade program, and then we would also be able to market a separate grease interceptor. There's probably a better marketing term for that, right? But some way where we would help you offset the cost of that under the same program, but possibly a different marketing strategy where this one would just be for the sewer fees. But I think 100% in the fact that there are existing businesses within the city that are being required to install costly grease interceptors, that helping them out financially would do well in terms of our expansion and retention program.
And just as a side note to that, since Elizabeth is not here, our general utilities manager, chief plant operator, is currently working on putting in guidelines for assessment of businesses that need an assessment to determine what businesses would need to comply with putting in a grease interceptor, or what may be okay with their existing equipment. So that was part of the issue before, was we kind of approached it from a blanket standpoint. If you didn't have one, you need one. But in reality, that's not the case. So we're developing a system that's all lined out, modeled after some other successful cities, that will give us a very good guideline and be very clear for both business owners and for staff on what the appropriate steps are for analysis of an existing or proposed business, and then what would then trigger, based on that analysis, the need for additional equipment or not. So hopefully that will help across the board as well.
Next area.
I'm done. That's it.
Additional questions or concerns from Mr. Warsinski or his team? Questions or comments?
I think this is a great discussion. And Mr. Castaldo, I'm really excited to hear that you've organized business owners. I hope you can bring some of your members in for future meetings, because we have done our best to try and encourage people to come in, and we've had less than a handful over the last few months. So if you can get the word out to your members and ask them to come in, I think it would be very beneficial for us to continue this discussion. Maybe you can share with them a lot of what we've talked about, and they can help guide us in ways that that would help us. I don't think any of us are small business owners at this point. So we may have been in previous lives, but at this point we need to hear from people in Beaumont who are dealing with this on a day-to-day basis, people like Anthony and others like that. So I think it was a really good discussion.
While I thank you all, while I had a recommended action here, I'm going to ask for some directive from the mayor and from Mr. Warsinski, because I heard some comments made that perhaps this should be tabled for additional discussion at the next meeting. But I'm also seeing here that possibly you were asking for a motion to recommend that this be moved to council. So are we looking for this to continue conversation in our next meeting, and then perhaps a motion that would move it towards the recommended?
So it's really up to the committee in general. A reason I put that recommendation is simply just to have it there in case everything was completely vetted tonight and everyone was comfortable with what was proposed, or had certain changes that everyone was comfortable with, we could make a recommendation. But if the committee wants to discuss further, then we simply ask for a motion to continue the item to further discussion to the next meeting, and we can fully vet it at that meeting, or however many it takes to present council a recommendation that we all feel comfortable with.
Yeah. I'm only going to make this observation and then, go with what the body says. I don't think, I would hope that we wouldn't sit on this too long. I personally would prefer to make the recommendation to council, with us continuing dialogue and welcoming businesses to come in and share ideas that we can continue to provide good information to our executive leaders. That said, it's such a great idea what I saw in this presentation, that I think that we need to quickly find a way to benefit those businesses that exist right now in our communities. Not Texas Roadhouse, but Cornerstone and others who are in this community. That's my 2 cents. But certainly, I think this is a fluid conversation, because certainly your expertise brings new things for us to think about. We have individuals here, of course, that understand the commercial real estate game, and so they'll always raise an issue that we can share with our executive leaders. So I would entertain a motion that we would make a recommendation to our city council for adoption of a incentive program based on their findings and discussions, and then any additional changes that would be needed by.
So moved.
My concern is that the purpose of setting up the Economic Development Committee was to not put the council in a position where we're discussing this for 2 hours. And if you look at our upcoming schedule for council meetings, we don't have any openings until maybe the second meeting in November, I'm thinking, if even that.
I think we're looking at the first meeting in December at this point before we have openings on the schedule. So we do have time to bring it back to this committee if that's the direction, so.
Yeah, I'd like to wait for one more meeting, because we've asked a lot of questions that I know Christina and Kyle will go back and watch this again and pick up on the stuff that we've discussed, and then bring something back to us November, second week in November, that we could then present to the next meeting up, or the first week in December easily.
That works fine. If the timing is good with this committee, then, that's fine. And we understand the urgency as well. And the city manager and I have met with business owners already out downtown. We've walked some sites already. So the information is out there, and we are still communicating and working with people and providing information. But we do need to make sure that this is handled appropriately, and that these questions that were raised tonight were answered.
Duly noted. That's the reason we need the wisdom of our leaders here. With that said, although it died for lack of second, I'm going to ask member if he would be willing to withdraw that motion.
Yes.
And then we'll table this issue until the next meeting and look for additional information from our Mr. Warsinski and his team that will guide us towards a finalized product that we can recommend to our council.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you,
I appreciate that.
Thank you, Your Honor. We'll move on if we've gotten past this particular area. I see where we have item 3 is continued discussion, so we've continued to have that discussion as part of this. With that said, I'll ask if there are any reports that come from any of our members, any reports coming from members. Okay. No reports.
I have a question.
Yes, please, ask.
On that RCTC passenger rail project, is it the same as the one they're talking about extending to Palm Springs? Or is this a different one?
No, it is the Coachella Valley line to go all the way out to Coachella Valley.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I find that very fascinating and interesting, and I think it's a great idea. With people on freeways these days tied up for 2-3 hours going 35, 40 miles, I would get on the train in a heartbeat and go see a USC game.
Why'd you have to say that? You really would, never mind. So I sit on the committee, the RCTC Rail Committee, and we have a presentation coming to council, I believe. I think it's in November. I put this into, they came to us and asked if they could make a presentation. So we will have a presentation at council probably end of November. Yeah, maybe December. But they are coming. And so it is a very interesting proposal.
Fantastic. As we've moved into topics for future agendas, and that being one, RCTC, are there any other items under this agenda item that you would like to see us move forward with discussion in the future? So it looks like we know for sure that RCTC is going to be one of those items that we have a discussion. Any other topics that you all want to bring to this body? Hearing none, then what I'm going to do is ask that we would entertain a motion for adjournment.
I move to adjourn.
Here for a second, and ask for a second.
I'll second.
All right.
Got a few.
We don't have to vote on that. So at exactly 5:46, the Beaumont Economic Development Committee is adjourned.
Betty? I don't want you, just,